So the Q3 results are out, and we have with us the founder of Biocon, Kiran Mazumdar-shaw, with us to talk on the results. We have recently seen the budget. The government has announced new policy for research. Kiran always talks about research and development programs. How important are they for the vaccine development, medicine development? We'll talk on that. But coming first to you, Kiran, on the quarterly results, we have seen the net loss, but the EBITDA is up. How do you see the Q3 results of Biocon, the biosimilar business, and what can you tell us about that?
So thank you, Ayushman. First and foremost, I'd like to say that we've had a stellar quarter from my point of view. This is the first time we have crossed 3,000 crores at a consolidated level. This is the first time we've crossed 1,500 crores at the biologics business level. And this is the first time we've crossed a core EBITDA of 1,000 crores this quarter. So overall, I think the business is very robust, very healthy, very strong. As you know, our EBITDA margins core EBITDA margins have improved. They've jumped to 36% from 33%. Of course, we've seen even EBITDA grow substantially to 723 crores, which is a 35% year-on-year growth. This is in spite of the fact that our R&D investment has jumped 144% to 337 crores this quarter. All this, of course, happened because of the Viatris acquisition that has contributed a little over 500 crores to the numbers this quarter. And this only captures financials post the deal closure, which took place on 29th November 2022. So what we have indicated is that for Q4, we expect this biologics number to jump from 1,500 to the 2,000 crore levels, which will indicate $1 billion exit trajectory for the business. And this is on the base business, which means that the business that only looks at the products in the market today. FY24 obviously will see an even stronger growth in the biologics business because we expect adalimumab business to kick in from end of July. We also are anticipating approvals for aspart and bevacizumab this calendar year, which will add to the business. And we're also seeing a good trajectory when it comes to improved market share of our existing business in the US, which is really the glargine, the trastuzumab, and the pegfilgrastim. And what is even more important for me to point out, which often is missed out, is the robust growth that we are seeing in Europe. Europe actually is a market where all 7 of our products are approved, and many of them will be launched this calendar year. So we expect a lot of contribution from those products even in Europe. We have also seen recent launches of our products, bevacizumab in Australia, and we've also seen aspart being launched in Canada, which I think will also further contribute to this growth. So overall, I'm very excited that we are tracking well in the right direction. We see ourselves as being global market leaders when it comes to biosimilars in the next few years. And I think this acquisition positions us well to see ourselves in that leadership position. Added to that, of course, is the generics business, which is also showing, high teens growth. And I think, the CEO has also indicated that we will be focused on mid-teen growth for the foreseeable future because we are able to see very differentiated business opportunities which are driving us in this kind of direction. So overall, I see that the Biocon business is in a very, very healthy state, a very robust state with solid growth and sustainable growth in the foreseeable future.
Thank you, Kiran Mazumdar, for elaborative answer on all the aspects. An important highlight of that was Viatris deal. We have seen over 3 months now the post-acquisition. How has been the deal there with you, and how successful do you rate it? Because a lot of plans are there in future. The product lines that are coming. How important or crucial the deal has been for you, and from here on how do you see it successfully complementing your growth in the future?
So I think the Viatris deal is a landmark deal for us because it absolutely gets us into a global leadership position, which we could have never done without this deal. I think this acquisition is unique because we've had a decade-long partnership with Viatris, and been a very interesting partnership where we were the development engine and they were the commercial engine. So what we have acquired is the commercial engine, and what we are looking at is to integrate and transition the commercial engine so that we become truly vertically integrated. We see ourselves as the largest fully integrated biosimilars company on the planet. That's the way we're positioning ourselves. That's the way we want to grow this business. And the good news is we made very, very large investments up until now to put ourselves into that frontline position. So I think most of the big ticket investments are behind us. And what we are seeing is incremental investment to make sure that we keep growing the business. So I think this is a very exciting inflection point for the Biocon group, for the biologics business. And we see this integration path as being fairly straightforward since we know what it entails in terms of the business. We've been working with Viatris for over a decade, and I think we work very well together as partners, so we hope for a seamless transition.
Thank you, Kiran, for that. But an important aspect of the Biocon Biologics that you talked about for future launches also, we have seen the generics business feeling that heat of inflation in US and Europe. How has been that for you, the US inflation and the effect of that in the business that currently the company is ensuing in the Western world? How inflation is affecting you?
So I personally believe that, as a vertically integrated company, of course, we are very competitive in the advanced markets. Whilst there is pricing pressure on some market segments, we are also seeing, some segments play out very well for us because there are very few competitors in certain segments. And in those segments, I don't think we're seeing that kind of pricing pressure. And as we move forwards, obviously, we want to play in that differentiated specialty place. So whilst we do feel the heat in certain segments, like say statins, we don't feel the same heat when it comes to immunosuppressants, and now we are venturing into the peptide field where we also believe that we will be able to be very competitive and differentiated.
Though you have partly answered that question of the products that are there in the pipeline for Europe and Australia also, what about the Biocon Biologics or the biologics business in India? Of course, we saw Aspart getting into that regulatory problem. What next for Aspart in India? Because you are going to launch it in Canada, you already have that in Europe. If you can briefly comment on that.
Let me be very honest. India is a market that we are in because we happen to be in India. But I think from a business point of view, I think we are really, the big opportunities are elsewhere. I think the big opportunities are in LATAM, the big opportunities are in APAC, the big opportunities are in the MENA region, and when it comes to the emerging markets. India is a very crowded and competitive market which has been rubbished by too many players and biosimilars who are basically commoditizing the business. Obviously, all these players don't have products that pass muster with US FDA and EMA, and they're obviously then playing the price game to get market share. I don't think that's the way we look at markets. We want to be differentiated as a high quality biosimilars player. And if we don't get entry in those aspects of the business in India, we will stay away. We are the world's largest insulin company, or at least we see ourselves as that. If not the large, not obviously we're not the largest in that sense, but as a biosimilars company, we see ourselves as the largest biosimilars insulins company in the world. We certainly have the capacity in place to be that. And I think India is a country that needs to benefit from our efforts, and we hope that India will become an important market for us. But at this point in time, we are present in India with our glargine and insulin, recombinant human insulin. But I can tell you that our market share in many other markets is much larger.
You have talked about the R&D investment going up in your company. We recently saw Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman talking about the research and innovations role in pharma. The government has announced a program. First, how do you see that announcement of government augmenting the infrastructure and somewhere pulling the plugs for research and innovation in pharma sector?
So I think it's a welcome statement from the finance minister, but I think we need to really see what it entails, because thus far we have not seen any kind of granular details of what this scheme is about. So whilst it talks about centers of excellence and whilst it talks about research incentives for the pharma sector, we are yet to see the details of the scheme. And until we see that, it's very difficult for me to comment. But obviously, it's a step in the right direction.
But there must be some expectations. What actually, because you have a global business. You have seen US, you have seen Europe. How should India take an approach on that? What should be the approach of government in order to support the R&Ds? Because there are companies which are meeting the government for policy discussions. What should be the roadmap for the government to actually help the companies for R&D?
Well, we have provided many recommendations to the government for such research-linked incentive policies. And I think we have given some very simple, policy, policy recommendations, where we have basically said that, the weighted tax reduction on R&D investments was a very good way of incentivizing investment in R&D, which I think is something that the government ought to consider. The second thing is, of course, to look at ways of capitalizing R&D investment in India so that it doesn't hit your P&L, because that is really the worry, because most companies are shy of investing in R&D beyond a point because it hits your P&L, which is what happens to us. But R&D is the lifeline of companies like ours. We always often say that our pipeline is our lifeline. And without investing in R&D, we cannot future-proof our business. So we are caught in between this challenge of reducing investment, R&D investments, and then risking our future. So I think that is where I think the government needs to play a role. I think it needs to allow weighted tax reduction so that basically we can invest more in R&D and not hit our P&L to that extent. So I think the incentives that industry wants is really an incentive for R&D that will see greater investment in R&D without impacting profitability, which really is what worries investors.
We have seen of late there are concerns being raised on the drugs which are being made from India. There are adulteration complaints. As a company, how do you see when you take your products outside? What is that when you read those reports of drug adulteration of those medicines which are actually made in India, and there are reports, then the CDSCO forms a panel, and then these reports, when it reaches to you, what is that you recommend should be done in India in order to strengthen the regulatory process?
Yes, so unfortunately, there is a fallout of these kind of cases where events such as the cough syrup that is supposed to have caused deaths in certain countries, as well as the recall of the eye drops manufactured in India from the US market, which is supposed to have caused blindness in patients. All these are extremely adverse events which affect the Indian pharmaceutical industry. The Indian pharmaceutical industry, by and large, is very compliant and committed to good manufacturing practices. And I think it is for us to build a very robust regulatory system. We need to have a regulatory governance model that allows all companies to be under the watch of regulatory inspections, which make sure that companies that are not compliant cannot get away with it. I think when you look at adulteration and spurious drugs, of course, that's a very different matter. I'm not even looking at that because that is a criminal activity. But the normal pharmaceutical manufacturing activity, I think, is fairly robust. But I think our regulators also need to be able to build that credibility for Indian industry through their own approaches to regulatory control. So I think I, for one, believe that most Indian companies are very compliant, are very focused on being, adopting good practices and global practices. But it is a journey that we are all on. And I think it is for a few of us to really stand out as high quality producers of pharmaceutical products, which also then can be leveraged by other companies. So that to me is really the way forward.
Kiran, one question on Immuni, because the company has just given out the results and they look promising. The CAR-T therapy in India, you have always talked about it, how important it is, and we are actually behind the schedule. So what actually lies in the future for that? How do you see the development of that CAR-T therapy in India?
So I think you're right. I mean, the reason why we started Immunil was to put India on the map of the CAR-T world. And I think what we should be very focused on is to have robust regulatory, capabilities to approve these kind of products. Again, it points back to regulations. Very often we get trapped in regulations which are not very favorable for these kind of technologies because there's not enough domain expertise within our regulatory system, and they often take decisions that delay these kind of approvals. So I'm really concerned that we will miss the boat if we don't have good regulatory capabilities to approve these kind of products.
Thank you so much, Kiran, for taking out time and speaking to Moneycontrol and answering all those questions related to the Indian pharma industry and Biocon. Thank you so much.
Thank you.